They say motherhood is thankless. They never said it would bankrupt you, break your back, and still leave you alone when you need a single $50 bill. My name's Margaret. I'm 62, and if you asked my neighbors, they'd say I'm a sweet old lady with a porch swing and a garden full of roses. They don't know I spent 6 years raising kids that weren't mine while my daughter danced under club lights and poured my pension into her bar tabs. And when I asked her for $50, just $50 for groceries after my car broke down, she told me I was the reason she never had a life. Then she blocked my number. That was the day I stopped being grandma, mom, and doormat all in one. That was the day I decided if she wanted to cut me off, I'd show her what it felt like to be really alone. It started when Amy was 23. She called me one night crying, "Mom, I can't do this alone. He left me. He's not paying child support. I don't know what to do." So I did what any mother would do. I packed up my knitting, got on the bus, and moved into her tiny apartment with peeling paint and a fridge that smelled like regret. For 6 years I was up at dawn packing school lunches, checking homework, washing bibs, reading bedtime stories while she slipped on heels and disappeared into the night. She'd stumble home at 3 a.m., stinking of tequila and cheap perfume. "Mom, you don't know what it's like. I'm young. I deserve fun. You're the grandma, that's what you're here for." And I swallowed it. Because someone had to hold that little family together. I thought if I did enough, she'd get her act together, maybe come home sober once in a while and remember I was there, too. I bought their groceries when she spent her paycheck on club covers and VIP tables. I paid late fees on her rent so the kids wouldn't come home to an eviction notice. I told myself it was temporary. But when you're a mother, temporary always finds a way to become forever, unless you stop it yourself. I didn't. Not then. I was too busy wiping runny noses and covering up her messes. By the time the kids were both in elementary school, Amy barely came home at all. Sometimes she'd vanish for 3 days straight, no calls, no good nights, no love you, Mom. I learned how to stretch stale bread into French toast. How to say mommy's working late while scrubbing vomit out of thrift store clothes. How to lie to the kids so they wouldn't feel the sting of being abandoned under the same roof. One winter, the transmission on my old Ford gave out. I needed $200 to fix it, money I didn't have after covering her overdue rent again. I didn't ask her for the full amount, just $50. $50 to buy groceries so I could feed her kids for another week while waiting on my Social Security check. I called her. Straight to voicemail. Texted her. No reply. An hour later, my phone pinged, not a call, but a message on Facebook, public for the whole family to see. "Some people will drain you dry then blame you when you're broke. I'm done with toxic people. Even if they gave birth to me." #boundaries. She blocked my number right after that. Blocked me on Facebook too. I stared at my phone so long I didn't notice the mac and cheese burning on the stove. The kids were fighting over crayons at the kitchen table. All I could hear was my daughter's voice in my head, "You don't know what it's like. You owe me." No. Not anymore. I wish I could say I threw her out that night, that I packed her things into garbage bags and dumped them on her boyfriend's porch. But she hadn't really lived there in months. There was nothing left to toss. It took me 3 days to really believe she was done with me. She didn't call to ask about the kids. Didn't answer when I left a voicemail saying her youngest had a fever. Didn't even check in when she heard through her cousin that I pawned my mother's wedding ring for grocery money. 3 days of silence turned the knot in my chest into cold iron. I sat at my tiny kitchen table at midnight, listening to the hum of the fridge and the soft snoring of 2 kids I hadn't asked for but would never abandon. And I decided that if my daughter wanted me out of her life, she was going to learn what it really meant. First thing I did? I called the lawyer. A kind, gray-haired man who didn't flinch when I told him the truth. I'd been the sole caregiver for my grandkids for 6 years. Amy hadn't paid a dime, hadn't been present, hadn't even pretended to be a mother. Within a week, I had a plan. And when my daughter finally realized what I was doing, she would wish she'd given me that $50 and a thank you. When you've been used long enough, you learn to keep receipts, the real kind and the mental kind. While Amy was out playing single and childless, I kept every text, every voicemail, every time she begged me to watch the kids just this once. I kept bank statements showing my pension covering her rent. I kept notes from teachers who called me mom by accident because she never showed her face at a parent conference. I handed every bit of that to my lawyer. He read it all twice, lips pressed together in a thin line. "Margaret," he said, "you've basically been these kids' mother. You know that, right?" I nodded. I knew. I just needed the courts to know it too. So we filed emergency guardianship, then full custody. I wasn't fighting for me, I was fighting to protect them from the fallout when Amy's good time train finally ran off the tracks. A week later, Amy blew up my sister's phone, screaming, "How dare she take my kids? She's poisoning them against me. She's stealing my life." No, darling. I wasn't stealing a life, I was saving two. Amy didn't come home to fight me face to face. She did what she always did, she threw a fit on Facebook. Imagine having a mother so bitter she'd kidnap her own grandkids just for money. Toxic parents are why I don't trust anyone. #freedom, #living my best life. Meanwhile, I was driving her kids to school every morning, packing sandwiches with smiley faces drawn on the napkins, listening to bedtime prayers whispered into my shoulder. She showed up to the first hearing wearing sunglasses and fake tears. Told the judge I'd forced her to let me watch them. Said I'd turned them against her. But when the judge asked when she last bought them school shoes, she couldn't answer. When he asked where she lived, she couldn't say. She stammered about staying with friends, figuring things out, working on herself. The judge didn't buy it. He looked at me, tired grandma, calloused hands, folder full of proof, and he made it official. Temporary custody, pending final review. Amy stormed out, sunglasses back on, heels clacking so loud they echoed off the courthouse walls. And as I buckled the kids into my rusted Ford, the oldest asked me, "Grandma, are we going home now?" Yes. Home. My home. The only real home they'd ever had. Amy didn't disappear for long. A month after losing temporary custody, she popped up at my front door like a stray cat that forgot it clawed you last time. She was dressed up like she was going out, hair done, fake lashes, fresh nails that probably cost more than my groceries for a week. She tried that old sweet voice, "Mom, let's talk. I just want my babies back. I'm ready to be a real mom now." I looked at her, really looked at her. Same pouch she used when she was 16 and wanted gas money. Same eyes that used to say "I love you, Mommy" right before they rolled back behind a slammed bedroom door. I told her, "Amy, I'm not stopping you from being a mother. But you have to prove you can be one." I asked her for a plan, a job, a lease, a schedule that didn't involve blacking out in VIP sections while I wiped noses at 2 a.m. She had none. Just crocodile tears and a shaky promise to do better. So I shut the door, not in anger, but in relief. She left claw marks in my screen door screaming, "You'll regret this. You need me more than I need you." No, Amy. Not anymore. She tried dirty tricks after that. Called CPS to claim I was too old to care for kids. Said I kept them from school, when in truth I was at every drop-off and every PTA meeting she never bothered to attend. When that didn't work, she showed up at the school to pick them up early, tried to look like the loving mom who just missed her babies. But the principal called me first. He knew the truth. I filed for full permanent custody right after that. The court date came fast because the judge had seen enough. Amy didn't even show up for the last hearing. Maybe she knew she'd already lost. Maybe she just didn't want to hear the words "your mother has permanent custody." When the papers were signed, I sat in my car in that cracked courthouse lot and let myself cry, not for her, but for me. For the 6 years I spent waiting for a thank you that was never coming. For the quiet house that was never going to be empty again, not while these two kids needed me more than their own mother ever did. I used to think I couldn't survive without my daughter's love. Turns out, I'd survived in spite of it. It's funny what you realize when you stop begging people to love you the way you love them. Amy was my daughter by birth, but those kids? They're my family by choice. And every bedtime story, every bowl of mac and cheese, every permission slip signed with my old hands means more than any bottle service receipt she could ever wave in my face. Sometimes people whisper that I should forgive her, that blood is thicker than water. I just smile and say blood doesn't feed hungry kids or get them to school on time. Amy pops up now and then. She'll send a pity text when she's broke. Hey mom, can I crash at yours for a bit? Just until I get on my feet. I don't answer. Not because I'm bitter, but because I'm done being the free hotel for someone who'd block me for asking for pocket change while I raised her babies for free. I don't wish her harm. I wish her the kind of life she thought she wanted. But my door? That's closed. People like to judge, they'll say you're her mother. You're supposed to love her no matter what. I did. For far too long. And she taught me exactly how that story ends. So now, I get up every morning, make breakfast for two little people who hug me so tight I forget what I lost. I'm not lonely. I'm not sorry. I'm free. And I'll never beg for $50 again. Sparkles emoji. So, tell me, if your own child turned on you after you gave them everything, would you forgive them? Or slam the door and start over like I did? Down pointing finger emoji. Drop your answer in the comments. Your story might be someone's courage to stand up for themselves too. If you want more real stories where betrayal meets revenge, hit that subscribe button now. This is Vengeance Tales, and here, karma never sleeps.